Screen. Okay, so it's 9 p.m. Eastern time here for me in Boston, our nighttime class, and this is a fun one for me to finish the day, our foam roller class for managing back pain. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Allie. I'm a doctor of physical therapy as well as a nationally certified Pilates instructor. I've been practicing here in Boston for the last 5 years and teaching with the Community Online Academy since it started back in March. So for today's program, we have a 30-minute program that's almost entirely movement-based about how to manage back pain with a foam roller. So I will be offering some challenges as well as some modifications. I think this class in particular has a lot of ways to really customize the program for your body. So please listen to what your body is telling you, what you're feeling, and take any modifications or challenges that feel right for you today. And that way you can get the most out of this workout. So we're gonna start actually laying on the roller. So I will turn the roller. It's going to go parallel along the length of the mat. So this is where if you have a shorter roller, you'll need to modify this exercise. I promise after this, you'll have no problems. So the easiest way to get on is to sit on the end and then kind of lower your spine down so that your head and your bottom are on the roller. If you have the shorter roller, you're gonna at least get your head and your rib cage on. You'll just need to lift your hips up a little bit or maybe stack some pillows underneath your hips. And so once you find yourself on the roller, especially since this is the end of the day for most of us, try and let your spine just settle down. And I know that being in this posture can feel a little different. I always notice that my neck position, I think, tends to be forward. So when you have the roller really lining you up, it can be eye-opening as to what that stacked spine posture is. And maybe you roll a little bit side to side, just trying to find your center on the mat. And we'll focus in here on our breathing. So take your inhale, expansive breath, open through the rib cage, the backside of your body. And with your exhale, feel the back of your rib cage press into the mat. And so it's not your low back that has to press down, it's actually your mid back here that should be contacting the back of the roller. So we take that big inhale, expansive breath again. With your exhale breath, imagine blowing out through a straw or maybe blowing out birthday candles. Feel the ribs slide down and together. Again, big inhale, open, expand that breath wide. Exhale to close. Try 2 more times like that. Inhale, open up, feel the rib cage lift. And exhale, close it down. Good. Now, from this position, you can go ahead and just gently let your arms open. So feel a nice stretch across your chest. Add a little tuck to your chin. Let your shoulder blades drape across the roller and just let your body melt down. This is a nice little pec stretch here. You can walk your hands up a little bit higher to feel that stretch at a different angle. So wherever that's the best stretch for your body, feel free to pause there. We'll take one more deep breath in this setup and then bring the tips of your fingers down by your side. Now, if you're on the shorter roller, just hang out in your stretch here. If you have the longer roller, we're gonna try a little balance exercise. So draw the front rib cage down, add a little tuck to your chin, and very gently try lifting one leg at a time off the floor. You want to try and keep your spine nice and still on the roller. So basically, we're mimicking our walking motion here. So you want to see if you can use that press of the back of your rib cage into the mat to help stabilize your spine as you move here. Allow your shoulders to drop away from your ears, keeping the neck long. Good. Now, if you've been taking my class for a couple weeks and you've tried this with me before, you can progress to lifting both legs. And so maybe you just stay here. You also have the option to lower one leg to the floor from this setup. And this is not an easy exercise. Go slow. Remember that you also don't have to lower your legs super far. So this can be small You're trying to stay light on your fingertips. Good. 3 more here. And 2. Last time. Good. Place both of your feet down. We're going to come off the roller. So the best way I think is to just roll and gracefully come on up. Now we're going to get into a bunch of rolling to improve our spine mobility as well as to improve the soft tissue mobility of our legs. Before we do that, I want to have you guys test your spine range of motion so you can really see and really feel what changes are being made with the roller. So go ahead and stand on up. I'll adjust my camera a little bit so you can see. The first thing we're going to do is stand with your feet planted, hip distance apart, ground your feet down to the floor. You're going to cross your arms across your chest and gently rotate, twisting to the right. Come back to the center, rotate and twist to the left. So all you're doing here is just assessing what your range of motion feels like. If it's stiff, if it's sore, painful, just notice it. We're going right and left. The next movement we'll do, we'll take our hands to our lower back. We're going to lean backwards and then gently come on up. Last movement we're checking is reaching down towards the floor. So go slow. You can allow your spine to bend down. Remember, I've done 7 classes today. My spine is feeling very warmed up, but it's okay if your spine is a little bit stiff here. Come all the way on up nice and slow and just notice how your body is feeling. So now we're going to take it back down onto the mat. We're going to go through a bunch of rolling and then we'll recheck all those movements at the end of class. So go ahead and turn your roller to the perpendicular direction to your mat. We're going to start with our upper back here. You guys can see still. Okay, so shoulder blades are going to go right onto the roller, and then bend your knees, hold your head in your hands, and make sure that it's the back of your skull, not your neck here, that you're holding onto to support your head. Now, right away, ground your feet into the floor, draw your rib cage towards your hips, and then pick your bottom up. You're going to start to roll to the base of your neck and then down just below your shoulder blades. So we're starting gentle here. We're just rolling along the length of our thoracic spine, our rib cage, where a lot of us tend to be quite stiff from sitting and being bent forward. So pushing into your feet to create that movement, your head is relaxed. I always kind of like to look over the top of my knees so that I can keep my neck in a neutral position. Now, also notice as you're rolling here, the difference between keeping your elbows really narrow by your head versus open. I prefer narrow because that pulls your shoulder blades off your back, and that will expose the joints on your back a little bit more. But if you're more comfortable having the arms open, that's fine. Now, if you find a spot that's fairly tight, bring your bottom down. You're going to draw the ribs down, just coming back to that neutral spine position like we were on the roller, and then allow your spine to drape backwards over the roller. And remember, this is really meant to target your upper back. So you don't want to just let your head look behind you. You want your whole sternum dropping back. Good. And then very gently coming on up. So for those of you who felt stiff in rotation, a lot of our stiffness and rotation comes from a limitation in the thoracic spine. So this one is important for you here. This also helps, of course, with that backward bending. So we're going to go and add in a couple more dimensions. You guys can keep rolling. I'm going to show you the movement. It's bending sideways and rotating rather, bringing one elbow up towards the ceiling. So we're going to do that on the roller to get a little deeper into that thoracic spine. So while you're here, let's start by bringing our right elbow towards our right hip. And you're going to continue to roll. That opens up your left side. So if you notice when you were doing that twisting and standing, like, wow, one side's a lot tighter than the other, maybe you spend a little bit more time on that side. And I'm going to switch here now, bringing my left elbow towards my left hip. And you can notice those differences when you're here too. You'll feel maybe that one side's stiffer or more sore than the other. You can feel free, this is where you can customize a little bit and start to spend more time on that side. The other option here is to add in that rotation. So that's turning one elbow up to the ceiling, the other elbow down towards the floor. This also helps with that rotation, the twisting. And you can do the same thing to the other side. So just notice those two sides. Maybe you feel like you need to spend a little bit of time on both, but that's up to you. You can certainly come back to the center. You can also bring your hips down and take a little rest. It's a lot of leg work, a lot of core work to do this. So feel free to take a rest if needed. We're going to spend just another moment or two here, kind of getting in through the shoulder blades and the back body. Good. And then gently come all the way on up. All right. So now we're going to start to work through the back sides of our legs. So if you had any of that tension with forward bending, this will be an important series. We're going to go starting with the glutes all the way down to the calves. So to work into our glutes, you're going to go ahead and sit on top of the roller, bending your knees. I'm going to start with my left side. So I'll place my left hand down to the floor, and then I'm going to turn and rotate my body to the left. So once I start to rotate, you can very gently roll to the back of your pelvis, all the way down to the bony part of your bottom, your sits bones, that bone that you sit right on top of. So our glutes are actually made up of a bunch of smaller muscles, and they kind of run the span of the pelvis. That bony part of the bottom of your pelvis called the ischial tuberosity, that's where our pelvis sort of stops, and it goes all the way up to the back, the crest of the back of your pelvis. So you can roll along the length of that zone, and just know different people are going to be tight in different areas. Feel free to spend more time where you feel like you need it. You can also turn and rotate to get into the side hip. I always caution people here that there is a big bone on the side of the hip. It's your greater trochanter, a part of your femur bone that is very sensitive to rolling over. So you want to be cautious that you're not rolling right on top of the bone. You should stay on the muscle. Now, if you want to put more body weight into this side, take your right ankle, put it on top of your left knee. You can also choose to just stay on this spot or sort of continue to roll back and forth in and out of that zone. So whatever feels good for your body here, try dropping your shoulder away from your ear, still keeping good posture in the rest of your body. And we'll spend just another moment on this side before we switch over to the right. All right. Nice job here, guys. So now bring your right foot down. You're going to spin to put your right hand down, rotating to turn to the right and start to roll through your right glute. And again, you can roll right down to the bone where you would sit and then right up to the back of your pelvis, just gently going in and out of those two zones, keeping your body gently rotated towards the right side. Just check in with your right shoulder. And again, be cautious as you start to get into more of those side hip muscles that you're not rolling over that big bone on the side of your hip. Like I said, on the left side, if you want to just pause and hold pressure over a spot, you can do that. You can also sort of just go back and forth over that spot and feel the pressure, but maybe a little bit less intensely. Now you can add body weight again by taking your left ankle, this time on top of your right knee. You can also bring your right foot a little bit closer to your body to add more weight, or walk your foot away from your body to take away weight. So whatever is comfy for you there, try that. You want to find the sweet spot where it's not agonizing, but you definitely feel that you're getting into those spots that are a little bit tight and sore. We'll spend just another moment here on this side. Good. And then we're going to go ahead and bring our roller underneath our hamstrings. So when we think about our sciatic nerve, it runs from the low back all the way down the back side of our legs into our feet. It branches off many times, but that is the course of the nerve. And so for some of us that have sensitivity in that area, if we loosen the tissue around the nerve, it allows it to move a little bit more freely. So we're going to work now into our hamstring. So find the meaty part of the muscle. You're going to bring your hands behind your hips. And then I recommend keeping the knees bent. That is to take pressure off of the nerve. So we don't really want to stress the nerve itself. We just want to move the tissue around it. So you're going to roll. Again, now we're going right up to that bony part of your pelvis and then down to the back of your knee. So your hamstrings, they actually do insert onto your pelvis. So you can roll all the way up that high, right about to where we were with our glutes, and then come all the way down to the back of your knee. We're not rolling over the knee joint for the very reason that it does not feel great to roll over bones. We're trying to stay on the meaty part of the muscle. So we're starting here in the center with both of your hamstrings, but our hamstrings are made up of 3 small muscles. And so you can rotate your legs a little bit to one side or to the other side so that you can feel more of the inner versus the outer parts of those muscles. So notice where you feel the tightness and stiffness. You can spend a little bit more time in that zone. That's how you can customize this class for your body. And if you want to add more body weight, so let's say one side is much tighter than the other, you can cross one ankle on top and then go ahead and continue with that pattern here. Good. And you can try the same thing on the other leg with that cross. Now, if your wrists are getting tired and sore, one, you can take a break. It is a lot of upper body work. You can lower onto your forearms, but know that this is a lot of shoulder work here too. It just takes the pressure off of your wrist. So I would recommend, if you can tolerate staying lifted, whatever position for your wrist is comfortable, give that a shot. Good. We'll spend just another moment or two here, and then we're going to switch down to the bottom part, which is our calves. Okay, so from this position, we're going to cross the knee joint and put the roller underneath our calves, so that meaty muscle all the way at the bottom of your lower leg. And just to review, we're going to go up to the knee, but not over the knee joint. And you can go all the way down to your Achilles. So we have our gastrocnemius, which is the calf muscle, but underneath that, we have a deeper muscle called the soleus. It runs a little bit lower in our legs, so you can get that all the way down by your Achilles tendon. So once again, the hands come behind your bottom, pick your bottom up, and you're going to pull the roller towards you, and then press the roller away. This one doubles as a little bit of core work to keep your hips hovering off the mat. Now, there's a nice modification here, like if your core is tired or your wrists are sore, you can just bend the roller, bend your knees, rather pulling the roller in and out. It's a lot less pressure, of course, than having your full body weight, but it's an option to do a little bit of light rolling for your calves with less work for the rest of your body. Now, if you're up in that lifted position, you can rotate a little bit here to the inside or the outside, feeling the different fibers of the calf muscle itself. You can also do the stack here. So if you want to cross one ankle on top of the other to spend more time on one side, feel free to do that. I always find this one much, much too intense. Now, our calves, we focus on this for our back, like I mentioned, because of that sciatic nerve connection, but also because the calf muscle is the very first, well, I shouldn't say the very first. We have little muscles in our feet too, but it's one of the biggest shock absorbers for our body when we're walking, running, going up and down stairs. So if our calves are functioning well, they take away a lot of stress that our back has to experience, also for our knees and our hips. So we like to keep them happy and healthy. Good. We're gonna try a couple more rolls just like this. Make sure you get down by the ankles, getting into that lower part of the soleus. And just another breath here. Good. And then you can lower your bottom down and take a rest. So from this setup, we're gonna flip on over now and get into our quad, so the front of the leg. So a lot of times limitations with extension, leaning back, can be tightness through the quads and maybe the hip flexors. So we'll take the roller in front of us, and we're gonna get the roller onto that meaty part of our quad muscle here. So as you set up, find the roller underneath, not onto your knees, on the muscle. You're gonna lower down onto your forearms and keep your toes down on the mat. Pull your, press your shoulders away like you're keeping really good form in your upper body. And then you can just start to walk down to bring the roller just above your knees, and then walk your elbows back to bring the roller just above your pelvis, or sorry, just below your pelvis. So you're kind of rolling like the length of your hamstring, but on the front of your leg. Now you have the option here to lift your feet. You can also keep your feet down to gently kind of walk and crawl yourself forward. Your quad muscle is made up of 4 small muscles that go across the length of your thigh. So you can definitely here do that same rolling in and rolling out motion to feel maybe some tightness in the outside of one or the inside of the other, and spend a little bit of time there. I find that the quad is a muscle that is overworked in a lot of people in substitution for weakness in our hamstrings and our glutes. And so the quads are always nice to spend a little bit of extra time on, especially at the end of the night. You have the option, I'm gonna back up a little bit here so you guys can still see that, to cross one ankle on top of the other to add in a little bit more body weight on one side. And you can spend a moment just pausing or maybe continuing to roll back and forth. Now, as you're rolling here, keep your upper body in good posture. So we want to treat the rest of our body nicely, still keeping our shoulders in good alignment, keeping our head lifted, maybe letting our feet rest down every so often, and really making sure you're getting all the way down to the tops of the knees and then all the way up to the bony part of your pelvis. And so it's a pretty long muscle here. That's why it can take a little bit more time and attention to feel how that muscle is doing and to loosen up the tight zones. Good. We're just going to spend another moment or two here. If you were crossing your ankle, go ahead and cross over to the other side. You can certainly take a break at any time if you're getting tired. I know all of these double as a little bit of core work, which I see as a benefit, but certainly can get a little bit fatiguing, and somehow I continue to creep forward on this one today. So I'll make sure I stay in the frame there for you guys. Good. We'll try just 2 more breaths here. And 1 more breath. Good. And then come all the way back and sit on up. Okay. So we're going to recheck those same spinal movements that we did at the beginning of class. I want you guys to sort of feel what has changed since doing that mobility work for your upper back and the soft tissue work for your legs. So go ahead and stand. I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit. You can do the same if you would like. Ground your feet down into the floor. Cross your arms across your chest. We're going to start with that rotation. So turning to twist, looking over to one side. Turning to twist, looking over to the other side. Good, you can try that one more time. I certainly feel a little bit more range of motion and certainly looser in that range of motion. We'll do the next one, which is leaning backwards. So bring your hands to your low back. Go ahead and give yourself a little backwards lean there. And then the last one we'll do is that forward reach. You can take your hands, let your head dive down, let your fingertips reach towards the floor, leaning forward. And then very gently come all the way on up. Nice work. So you guys can take a seat there. So what I hope you take from today's program is certainly that doing this type of mobility work can help you to get better pain-free range of motion in your spine. And the reason we care about that is that even though, you know, the movements I just took you through are not things that you kind of separately do in your day-to-day life, they activate little pieces of all the movements that we do. Things like, you know, reaching over and taking out the trash, or grabbing the car seat in the car. All those things have elements of twisting, of leaning back, and of leaning forward. So if your spine can be more flexible and pliable in doing those things, your injury risk is certainly less. Now that also comes along with strengthening, so you want to be strong in those postures, but I think mobility is a really great place to start. So with that being said, I'll spend our last moment or two of class here answering any additional questions that you guys have. You all did a really nice job focusing in on form, and I hope that your backs are also feeling a little bit better. I know I saw a couple things pop up into the chat here during class, so let me see if there are any. Okay, so there's a good question here about the quads being very painful. So like I said, that's not abnormal, especially if foam rolling is new to you. The quads are a zone that tends to be overused, if anything. And so those muscles get very, very tight and restricted. And so rolling over the tight muscles is painful, it's sore in the beginning. It's a good way to start to loosen up the muscles to help you activate your hamstrings and your glutes, which will be sort of the long-term solution to balancing them out. But definitely a normal sensation, especially if you are new to foam rolling. I promise it does get better. Good question here too. Are there foam rolling exercises you can do for the neck? So I don't usually recommend foam rolling the neck because you have a lot of vasculature, a lot of important arteries in your neck that you do not want to put compression on. So I don't recommend that you foam roll the neck. There is one technique where you can get into the back of your skull. I actually don't love that technique either. You may have seen it. You kind of roll your head on the back of the skull. What I don't like about that one is that it really pushes your head forward. It's a lot of flexion, which is also stressful to the arteries in the front of your neck. So I would say probably not your best solution. There are little techniques with tennis balls. The two tennis balls together, it looks like a peanut. That works really nicely for the back of your skull, and it's much less stressful to the front of your neck. There's also another question here. This goes along in the same category. What about rolling the low back? So for some of the same reasons, we have some organs around our low back. If you picture sort of your upper back, you have your rib cage that surrounds all your important organs. So it's pretty protected, it's strong. You could roll over that area and you're really only moving your ribs. When you get to the low back, you don't have your rib cage there to give support to the organs in the area, and it does not feel great. I also find that most people, believe it or not, the low back itself, when you look at the joint mobility, has pretty good joint mobility. You may feel that it's tight, and sometimes that's muscular tightness, but when it comes to the joints themselves, they usually tend to move more than the joints in the upper back. So I find that you get better improvements in range of motion by focusing on the upper back. And I think you guys can feel that today. You got better spine range of motion. We didn't touch your low back. We did everything around it and kind of left the low back alone. So it's a question I get a lot in this class, but there is a reason to the madness behind why we don't go over the low back itself. Okay, so there's a question here from T from Arav. What are some peroneal nerve exercises? So I'm not sure what you mean in terms of exercises if you're looking for stretches or strengthening. So the nerve itself, really you can't strengthen a nerve, you can strengthen the muscles around the nerve. And truthfully, you really cannot stretch a nerve either. Nerve is not contractile tissue. What you can do is stretch and loosen all the muscles that are surrounding that area to help the nerve move a little bit smoother, but your nerves are a fixed length. They do not get longer with stretching. So to address any sort of nerve issue, I always try and look at the surrounding muscles in the area. But sometimes you are having more distal nerve issues down in the leg, they can be related to your back. So you always want to make sure that someone is screening your back first. Another awesome question, how often do you recommend doing these exercises? So the rolling that we did for your legs, where we went all the way down the course of your legs, 2 to 3 days per week, not every day, because you will find that you might be a little bit sore from this tomorrow. You're creating micro damage in the tissue that helps your body to heal. So just the way that exercise creates little micro tears in your muscle, and that's how your muscles get stronger, foam rolling has a similar effect in that it's creating a little micro damage to bring blood flow to the area to help you heal. That being said, you need time to heal. So you don't want to do this every single day. 2 to 3 days a week is plenty. The one I would say you can do every day is the upper back. So when we were rolling over the upper back, it's really not a lot of, there are muscles there, but the focus on that is the joints themselves. You can move your joints every day. You could move them 5 times a day if you wanted to do that. So you're welcome to spend a lot of time doing that. And I recommend that if you have a day where you sit for most of the day, that you at least get in that foam rolling once, if not twice during the day. This is another good question here. So what are your views on icing? Do you ice the back and do you ice the area, do you ice the back or the area where the sciatic pain is? So it could be either. Truthfully, ice, when it comes to nerve pain, is very ineffective at actually creating an anti-inflammatory effect. And what that means is that the ice superficially on your skin does not get deep enough to where the nerve is to actually create an effect. But what it does do is it gives you different sensory input in your brain. So pain really is just a sensation in our brain that overrides that pain sensation. So it can actually help you, even though the pain is coming from your back, it can help you to put the ice on the spot where you're feeling pain. So wherever that sciatic nerve symptom, whether it's the back of your leg or your calf, you can put ice there just to help manage the pain from a brain perspective. It's not going to heal you. It's not going to have an anti-inflammatory response, but if it helps you feel better, absolutely use it. Let's see. Do I recommend using the foam roller for rotator cuff muscles? Yes and no. I think we actually did get into the foam roller, into the rotator cuff muscles rather, just because we were rolling our upper back. It's very hard to be specific to those muscles because they are such small muscles. So for the same reason someone was asking earlier in class about some of the pelvic floor muscles, they're very small. Your roller is big, so it's hard to be specific over those regions. But when we're doing the rolling like this on our back, a lot of our rotator cuff muscles are right here. So you are getting into some of those muscles when you do the upper back rolling. Okay. Whitney, I'll briefly answer your question. So I try and keep this class mostly to low back, but she has a question about biceps and deltoids having large knots. I think it's really hard to foam roll with the body weight on your bicep and tricep because they're so small. But if you've ever seen the stick roller, you can use the stick. It has a similar effect to foam rolling. It's a little bit easier to use on your arms. It's also more gentle. So that's something you can look for a little bit of upper body work. So thank you guys so much for sticking around.